Good Shabbos. This week's portion is Parshas Devarim, and it's also the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, which is known as Shabbos Chazon. And Tisha B'Av, of course, is the saddest day in the Jewish calendar. Today we remember the destruction of two temples that were in Jerusalem and the exile of the Jewish people, both after the Babylonian destruction of the first temple in 586 BCE and in 70 CE destruction of the second temple by the Romans, and again the Jews were put into exile and diaspora, which lasted for thousands of years. And on the day of Tisha B'Av, we have kinot, which are liturgical poems which describe all kinds of sadness that happened throughout Jewish history, whether it's the Crusades, destruction of many different Jewish communities, and of course, in more recent memory, we remember the pogroms, and we also remember the Holocaust, and all of Jewish history and the sadness of Jewish history comes to the fore on the day of Tisha B'Av. But in modern times, now that we have established the state of Israel, and the Jews for the first time in thousands of years are actually in control of the land which they live in, the land of Israel, we could almost say we live in the best of times and the worst of times. Personally, there was a number of years where I spent the summers in Israel, and on Tisha B'Av, I would go to the Western Wall, called the Wailing Wall, the Kosel Maravi, and I would say the Eicha, the Lamentations of Yirmiyahu, of Jeremiah, in front of the wall. I would stand in the old city up on one of the buildings and look down at the Temple Mount and see, of course, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, which represents a foreign representation of what the temple was. You could see the stones which were unearthed a number of years ago from the destruction of the Second Temple. You could actually see large stones which were pushed down by the Romans onto the street below, with the street collapsing under the weight of these stones. And you could remember and see and almost experience the destruction of the temple. But at the same time, I was standing in the old city, which had been destroyed in 1948, when the Jews were pushed out once again from the city of Jerusalem, from the old city of Jerusalem. But it was built up again. And even though we have a prayer on Tisha B'Av which talks about the ruins of Jerusalem, and that we're praying for them to be rebuilt, actually that prayer is somewhat of a strange prayer that we say today, because the city of Jerusalem, except for the temple, has been rebuilt. We stand in the old city of Jerusalem, which is completely new, and we could now celebrate the fact that we have domain over Jerusalem. We even control the Temple Mount, although we don't pray there and we haven't built a temple. So on the one hand, we're remembering all the sad times. We realize that we haven't come to the full completion of our redemption. But on the other hand, we are able to celebrate that we have our own country. We have our own army. We're in control of our own future. And we stand here today and we say that, and yet we know that Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, we're surrounded by enemies. We're threatened with complete and total destruction. But yet, it doesn't seem like we're at the point of destruction of the temples, or during the Holocaust, when there didn't seem to be any hope. We didn't seem to have any future. And now we have a future. We have a future. We also are being threatened by our enemies. We don't really know what our future is, but there's still a sense that we have control over our future. The fact is that Israelis are still streaming back to the land of Israel, even during times of war, because they realize that although we're threatened, we also have our brothers and sisters in Israel who are willing to defend us, and that we have the means for our own defense. So we come to Tisha B'Av this year We cry the tears over the destruction of the temple. We remember the pogroms. We remember the Crusades. Remember the Holocaust. And then we also remember the fact that God has allowed us to come back to the land of Israel, to build the land of Israel, to build an army to defend ourselves from our enemies. And we hope and pray that we have a future. To repeat something which is often said, the Talmud tells us that the second temple was destroyed because of sinas chinam, because of unnecessary hatred amongst Jews. Divisions amongst Jews and disunity is the cause of all of our problems. And even today, of course, we have a lot of disunity, but even in our terrible disunified state of existence, we have an unbelievable state of unity. However strange that sounds, all you have to do is go back to before October 7th, when the country of Israel seemed to be divided over judicial reform, and that there were reservists who said they will not fight, they will not go back, and they will not fight and defend the state of Israel. When October 7th happened, every single one of those people who said they wouldn't fight, of course were there to fight. We do have unity, but we have to remember it. When we have disunity, we sometimes forget the fact that we should be joyous in this fact that we have the state of Israel, that we're able to be unified. And ultimately, deep down, I believe that the Jewish people feel as if they're one. No matter what our divisions between secular and religious, Sephardim, Ashkenazim, rightists and leftists, Likud, labor, whatever the divisions that exist, ultimately we know that we're one people, that will stand together. And God hopefully will be on our side and make sure that the redemption that we saw since 1948 and ongoing, the fact that we're able to defend ourselves under the most trying times, will lead us to a point where we will really experience peace and security in the land of Israel. Good Shabbos.